In this video we're going to show you when and how to replace your chainring. The common reasons for replacing the chainring are normally because you've started to have a problem with chain suck, where the chain has got caught on itself. That's normally if you've got multiple chain rings, or the chain is slipping off. It's essentially much like with the cassette. You've got a series of teeth here, which in this case are narrow and wide, and they're designed to hook in to the wider and narrower sections of each chain, and they hold it in place so that as you put the power down through the crank, you are able to turn the chain as efficiently as possible. As the chain begins to wear, you'll get a sharpening of the teeth, you'll get a change in the pattern between the teeth, and you'll also notice a change in performance. This chainring doesn't look too bad, to be honest. You can do this if you're wanting to clean your chainring. So what we're going to do, we're going to remove it. I'm going to show you how to do that and how you would work out what to replace it with. So we're now going to remove the chainring. To do that, first thing we need to do is to get the chain itself out of the way. And we just lift it off and put it on the inside. First thing we need is an 8mm Allen key, and we're going to undo this bolt in the crank. Cranks do up going forwards and undo coming backwards, and that's the same on both sides. So we're just going to pull that and undo that bolt. We'll put that to one side. As you can see, although there's no bolt in place, I can't simply pull the crank off. I need to use what's called a crank puller, and this crank puller has got the smaller interior because there's nothing in that crank for it to push against. So you start by just screwing that in place, being careful that it goes in evenly. And then you're screwing in this outer shaft, and that will then gets to a point where it begins to bite, and then that is, as you can see, it's just gradually pulling the crank away from the bottom bracket and from the spindle. There we are. So the first thing we're going to do is to remove the crank extractor. There we go. And now we can see the chainring, the crank, and this is in fact a race face system which uses cinch, which is essentially a locking nut, just like you'd find on your cassette. And you need to remove that locking nut in order to take the chainring off. There's some information on here. It says it's race face, it's a 30-tooth chainring, and it gives you a code. So if you needed to replace that, that's the information you'd need. So now we're going to remove the lock ring here, which will mean that we can just lift off the chainring. So we're going to use this tool with a splined socket that you would find, you could use for a square taper bottom bracket, for example. The splines on the socket sit in the splines on this lock ring. This is where it is quite hard because you're not attached to anything, so to get the force through, and you just push it away from you like that and loosen it. There we are, and then the chainring lifts off. We've had a chance to look at this chainring and it's fine. I'm going to pop it back on. So we want to match it up and just pop it into place like so. And then we need to reapply the lock ring. We started off by hand. There's a little washer inside, a wavy washer, which gives you a bit of pressure as well. So you have to really make sure that you've got it flat. There we are. you've got the Newton meter reading here, so you get your torque wrench and do it up to 40 Newton meters. Now it's time we can reinstall the crank with the chainring on. It sounds obvious, but when you're reinstalling a crank, make sure that it's opposite to the one on the other side. Otherwise you're not going to get very far. So we put the washer back in and pop it on like that. And then this time all we have to do to pull it into place is to use the original bolt. So I then get my 8mm Allen key, and then again this needs to go to 40 Newton meters, so you would do it up by hand and then use your torque wrench on that. Then it's simply a case of reinstating your chain, and away you go. And that's how you check and replace your chainring.